Welcome, welcome. Jamie Hernandez here, founder of Breakthrough Yoga Coaching Method, helping you bridge the gap between your spiritual practice and your business. Today's training is called the 5 Keys of Manifesting Your Dream Life and Your Business. Now, I'm not claiming that I am some manifestation expert. I think in many ways, all of us are natural manifestors, especially if you're in this group. But what I do know is if we are going to create a life that we love, a life that we dream of, a life that we envision, manifestation is part of the whole process. And what I want you to think about is that there are some things in your life that you have naturally manifested. It's like, for example, right now I'm in a backyard, my backyard with a house with 2 floors and a driveway. Okay, so my husband and I, we manifested this house because it was sort of this thing that we've been thinking upon, planning upon, taking action upon for a long time. So I want you to think in your life, what are the things in your life today that you've naturally manifested? Like if you look back in your timeline and you look back like 10 years from now, I'm sure, especially if you're a coach or if you're a healer, it's like there's so many clients you work with, there's so many experiences that you've experienced, given retreats, all of these things, and it has been almost a natural progression because you continue to kind of move towards what you were curious about, what lit you up, what was exciting, what is the things that you wanted to break through and heal. So let me know in the comments if there's something in your life that you've already naturally manifested. So look around, and don't look around in the future, obviously, but look, where you were 10 years ago and where you are today. There are many things that you've manifested in your life. Now, there are certain things that are a little bit more, we want them, but we don't necessarily create an intentional environment. Like, so for example, house, garage, driveway, backyard, because that's almost like a collective thing in some way. It's not like this out of the box thing that we're thinking about, and maybe for some it is, but for us it's like, okay, yeah, that's what we're gonna do, right? And even when we were like young, since we were 18, we kind of understood the understanding of compounding interest and all of this stuff. So it was sort of something natural. But there are certain things in your life that you manifest and you're being called, and those are the manifestations I'm talking about. You're being called for a greater purpose. Perhaps you need some tools like money and resources like coaches and mentors and things to make something that you've always known to be true happen. And those kind of things, they in some way naturally happen, but in other ways we have to be intentional. So the thing I want to ask you right now is, what timeline are you on right now? Because I think when we're younger, it's natural to envision our life, and because we don't have a lot of pressure, right? Like when you're a kid and you imagine yourself dancing, or you imagine yourself in a house, or you imagine yourself, having babies, like those things are actually intuitive hits, and there's no pressure of like making it happen. You're just like, oh yeah, one day that would be so cool if I, would be dancing in front of a stage of people, or speaking to people, or, there's these things that you envision in your intuition. And I've talked about this a lot, things that you've always known. And then as you move towards where you're moving, and then you start getting an even more clearer picture, and you become an adult, so many things start to happen in your psyche and in your subconscious, and the pressure of surviving, the pressure of providing for yourself, and if you have a family or if you have a business, that starts to kind of affect what you expect and affect the pressure we may put on ourselves unconsciously, emotionally, and actually actual pressure to make something happen. So then it starts to shift and change. So then we have to create an environment that supports our manifestation goals and dreams. We have to create some kind of what I think is a lifestyle. If you look at anyone successful right? And it does, success is on your terms, okay? I'm not talking about only financial success. I'm talking about somebody who really is living their life the way they truly envision it. They are very intentional about their timelines, okay? So I want to start to ask you some questions. What timeline are you on? So for example, if I think about one of my greatest mentors, she was on a timeline that she realized she was going to go crazy, and she was sort of like in completely on the wrong timeline, living in the city, and now, like 10 years later, I think it's even longer, that she's like now in South America on a beach with a huge land and like a community and surfs every day. Like that's a completely different timeline, you see? And so those kind of timelines, we have to start to see like what timeline are you on? Meaning to say, there is somewhere you're going. Okay, you all know you're going somewhere. But do you consciously know and see and envision where that is? Right? And I talk about this a lot, but it's like if we're going to see that, we're going to have to learn how to somatically, let the nervous system receive. We're going to have to learn how to clear the mind, is what we do in our program. And we're going to have to energetically know how to master our energy. So from that place, when we get these hits of intuition, these hits of downloads, these hits of like knowing and seeing yourself, but now it's with all of this other construct, this ego construct of in the collective, right, having a house and a home and all that stuff here is not totally out of the box, but moving down south or moving to Hawaii to go surfing, and that's like you revolve your whole life around that. That's a different timeline that you know to be true, but your surroundings don't necessarily support it. So that's why I'm saying some manifestations require some kind of structure, some kind of container, and a lifestyle. Okay, so the first question is, what timeline are you on? And in order to see what timeline you're on, you have to have some sort of practice of being able to listen. I talk about this a lot in many of my other trainings, so I'm not going to go into it too much, right? And then in that timeline, you want to start to see like, well, in that timeline, who am I becoming? Because you are a coach, you are a healer, and I know you envision yourself, and you're always envisioning the evolution of yourself, because that's who we are as human beings. We don't stay a 5-year-old or a 14-year-old, a 30-year-old. Every transformation is an evolution of who we are, a different version of who we are, right? So that part is natural. But as we kind of go into our own vision that may not match our external reality, we have to really start to tune in and learn how to trust what that vision is saying. So who are you becoming in that vision? Okay, so who's that identity? What is that new version? And again, it's something we've been doing for our whole life, right? When you were 30, when you were 40, when you were 50, when you were 60, there is always a new version of yourself. So we want to maybe take off the pressure of like, oh, this new version, like sometimes we get a little caught up, especially like with social media and all this stuff, like the new identity. But it's a very natural thing. Like there's a new identity. And if we can really listen to that and see who that is, then we can learn how to take actions from that new version of ourselves. Right? So it's like the 5-year-old who always wanted to be a ballet dancer. She's going to beg mommy and daddy to bring her to ballet lessons every day, right? Because she sees herself in that new identity, that new version. Do you see? Right? So same with us, but now we don't have mommy and daddy. Same with us. We are becoming, right? And who are you becoming? Okay, and again, comes from deep meditation, that comes from flashes of intuition. I talk about that a lot in many other trainings, so scroll down and you'll see. But where do you see yourself going? Okay, and this happens so much where it's like we have these visions of, so many of my clients see themselves speaking to many different people, right? And touching many different people and transforming the lives of many different people. And so we want to start to like continue to see that, because now for some reason as we're an adult, when we have these visions of ourselves, like the ballerina who she buys a tutu and she does everything, and she like begs her mom for the ballet slippers and she does it all, right? We somehow we hold back on that thing that's like, because we almost see it as a dream, and then our subconscious gets so used to doing what's comfortable or what's safe that we don't necessarily listen to who we're becoming. Sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. So we want to start to see, who are we becoming? So ask yourself that question. And these are going to be all contemplative questions that will hopefully come to you, right? And I think right? Deep down, if you really were to continue to observe your own intuition, you kind of know who you're becoming. Right? And so it's the courage of like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm becoming a leader in my space. I'm becoming a healer of these people. I am, becoming somebody who offers this type of service. I'm becoming a person who has this body, this type of family, this type of relationship, this type of lifestyle, this type of schedule, right? Who makes certain decisions, right? And the other question is, how active are you about staying in this present moment? How active, when you start to understand what timeline you're on, and do you want to shift that timeline, right? Because sometimes we are on a timeline and we're like, I'm like, in the next 10 years, if I keep on doing what I'm doing exactly the way I'm doing it today, is that the timeline I want to stay on? If it is, great, stay on it. But if it isn't, and most likely for most people, it's like a tweak where there's a lot of things going on that's great, but there's there's something else that is like pulling you, especially if you're a coach or a healer. There's something that is compelling your soul, right? So are you actively in this present moment, right, supporting that timeline and who you're becoming, right? And that comes from our own internal work. That comes from the environment that we surround ourselves in. So, where do you place yourself? If you, for example, are this, I'll just use an example, but it's like if you are, I don't know, right? Like if you are somebody who's a health coach and you're hanging around people who are eating junk food and watching TV all day, right? it's going to be really hard to thrive in that environment. Okay, so that's just a silly example, or an obvious example. So now we can start to discern, because we get just so used to the timeline that we're on, used to what we're doing in the everyday Monday, just getting our stuff done, dinner, all this stuff, right? But it's like, how active are you placing yourself in an environment that supports the timeline that you want to be on? Who are the people that you're surrounding yourself with? What are the things even around you? How are you even dressing, right, to be on that timeline? Like, because our environment, right, is much stronger than our willpower. So we might as well make it easy for ourselves. Like the little girl who wants to become a princess, what does her room look like? It's a friggin' like palace, right? My daughter fills her room with all of these like stuffies, and it's so colorful in there, and it's like this rainbow, like magical place, because that's who she knows who she is. She's like this magical rainbow being, and so same with you. It's like, how do you surround yourself with? And for me, like I utilize alter medicine, where it's taking objects from the 5 elements and intentionally utilizing and what I would call prayer to help me remind me of who I'm becoming and where I'm going and what timeline I'm moving along, right? And you know, asking not just help from my own intellect or from Google, but it's like asking, the greater life, whatever that is, that we consider that is, but something bigger than us, right? Because it's always been something bigger than us. It's always been something bigger than us. And so if we don't take the time to tune into that part of us that is connected to all things and is in this place of knowing and is this trust in life, then we're just going to kind of do our thing. We're going to stay in survival mode and just do our thing, which is important, because that's the first layer of being, is like being able to take care of your own needs. But if we don't leave room, right, to step into that place where there's a higher state of consciousness, where there is a place where you can feel attuned to life and all that is, attuned to maybe your own guides and spirits, attuned to a frequency of knowing and trust in life, it's going to be very hard to or pretty much impossible, right, to kind of stay on a timeline that you envision, And let me know in the comments if that makes sense, right? So, and the thing is, and why I call this a lifestyle, it's like you have to surround yourself physically, mentally, energetically with the people, with the things, with spirits, in order to manifest what you want. And so it becomes a intentional choice, moment by moment. Little girls who stay in their room and are princesses all day long, they're doing it for fun, they're doing it for play, and so we can tune back into that energy of innocence, of play, of supporting herself in that fun way of oftentimes I'll dress a certain way because it gives space for the creative force to land here on earth, because that creative force is everywhere. That creative force is constantly streaming through us, and if we don't reinforce that creative force, right, then it's very hard for our mind to actually see anything manifest in the 3D, if that makes sense. Yeah, let me know if that makes sense. Okay, so I don't want to turn this thing off. Okay, now I think the biggest thing that we have to start to understand, and I talked about this at the beginning, is we are constantly stepping into new identities. And so one way of practically going about this for you is, if you're starting to see what timeline you're moving along, and you kind of want to shift, and who you're becoming, that who you're becoming needs to make decisions today. So when we're manifesting something, we're living it, we're being it, we're breathing it now, right? And again, I want you to think about something like, a lot of us go on these dream retreats that we've always wanted to study with our most beloved guru, our teacher, or whatever you call them, right? And we naturally, hey Allison, we've naturally manifested that, and we're that identity, right? That identity that we are choosing, like, okay, I'm a person who goes on these retreats, who interacts with these soul beings, who is in an environment where we do certain things that maybe not everyone I know does, but it's like, so we start to decide based on the new identity, right? And so again, sometimes when we're trying to do something, we want to see, well, how did I kind of already do that, right? So if I've manifested a trip to Bali and to study with my most adored teacher or this retreat that I've always been wanting to go on, there is something that you've done there, right? One, you made the decision. Two, the new identity or that identity who is the one that goes on retreats made the decisions, right? So the new identity of the version that you're becoming, and we're always creating new identities, is deciding. So then you start to decide, okay, yeah, what am I going to wear? Oh yeah, like, okay, what airline am I going to take? Oh, okay, how much am I willing to pay for the tickets? Oh, okay, how am I going to greet that teacher when I'm there? Oh, okay, like how am I going to interact with the people when I'm there? What am I going to do when I'm in Bali? Do you see how naturally you've done this before? So if you're trying to manifest something that is not necessarily coming into fruition or you're not feeling it, it's because you're not making decisions based on what the identity of that version of yourself would make. You see? So timelines are really interesting because you can kind of shift, and here's the interesting thing about timelines. It's like they're very shifty, okay? Depending on the vibration you're holding. 1 week, they sort of like, I see this all the time with my husband. We can like totally be getting along and, you know, doing all kinds of stuff that, that I have intentionally focused my own timeline, and then it shifts everything else and everyone in it. And then let's say, for example, we kind of get out of the manifestation lifestyle and we just sort of like do our thing and we just wake up and we're just cranky and you know, and doing, and then just like kind of surviving. You will see, and I want you to notice this in your life, you will see everybody and everything in that timeline shifts. And I see this often with my clients, right? So all of you are coaches and healers. So, you know, when I'm sort of in that practice, my manifestation lifestyle, everybody in the timeline, especially with my clients who are like, you know, dealing with a lot of different, you know, emotional issues, are who isn't, okay? So just, but it's interesting that they're going to be on a slightly different frequency. But when I'm sort of off in my own frequency, I notice all my other clients are also off. I mean, it's an obvious, I want you to kind of observe this because you guys are coaches and healers, right? And therapists and in the therapeutic realm, but it's like, I want you to notice that, okay? I want you to notice how all of your clients are kind of a little bit more, have a little bit more resistance, or a little bit more in their patterns, or a little bit more in the kind of shadow of things, right? And it's like, whew. And then when I shift myself, it shifts and everything else shifts around it. So that's why it's important to continuously build a manifestation lifestyle, because we're constantly jumping timelines in milliseconds. I can decide who I am right now for the next moment. Like, let's say, for example, I did something that was not so graceful. I don't know what. I yelled at my kid. I can bring that past into the present and anchor it as if that's my identity. Or I can literally in a millisecond choose, okay, no. My new version of myself is somebody who is going to take a moment, is going to breathe, write an apology letter to my daughter who I just screamed at. Like, do you see how we're constant, like in that millisecond, based on the new identity that I see myself in and that I have chosen, I am now jumping timelines. And sometimes it's interesting because sometimes we can jump all the way back to, like, you know, I thought I dealt with this shit already. You know, like you I don't know, you meet your family or you do something and you're like, damn, why is this coming up again? Because some timelines are so familiar that we bring it right back into the present moment and identify ourselves as that. And so the new version of ourselves gets mixed up, and the current version of ourselves and then the old version of ourselves gets all like mélangé. Yeah. And we're making decisions based on that old identity. So if you've been dealing with something chronic for a long time, It's because the identity of who you were is constantly being brought into the present, and you're constantly making decisions based on that. So, for example, I moved from this city to another city, and then on this block, I noticed, damn, like everything is like a little bit more expensive. Like the milk is more expensive, the fruits are more expensive, the food is more expensive, and I was living this other place where it's like, oh, everything is kind of a little bit like less expensive. So at a certain, there was a point where I was still in that identity. And so I would go to my old city, my old town, and that is not that far, a borough, I guess you would say, and buy stuff there. Until I realized, like, okay, no, you live here now. And you're like, your grocery store is literally on this street. So the new version of myself had to choose. It's like, well, you're going to live here, right? So now choose, to buy your milk here. Now, I'm not saying we to be careless and with your money and stuff like that. But I'm just saying the very fact that I started to choose the ease of buying things here, and understand that, it's no problem. I can also live here and manifest the abundance I need to buy the milk here, right? Then everything shifted because I decided from that identity. Is this making sense to you guys, right? Again, I don't see the comments right away, which drives me nuts, but I probably can see it on my other phone. But let me know if that makes sense, where it's like, so you want to start to ask yourself on a regular basis, okay, if you're becoming something, because you always are. That's the thing, you always are. So let go of this, like, oh my God, now I'm this thing. It's like you've always done that. How many times have you changed your identity, like over and over again? Every time you change ages, cities, boyfriends, whatever it is, it's like you've changed your identity. So you want to start to ask yourself on a regular basis, what would the new version, right, of this identity choose in this moment? That's the frame for everything, guys. Okay, it makes it manifestation a little bit more simple, because I know there's so many things, vision boards, all this stuff, feel the feeling, all this stuff. But I think as an intuitive, if you tune in, right, to in the present moment, and you move forward on the timeline that you want to become and who you're becoming, and simply ask yourself, that new version of myself, what choices will they make? And guess what? They're going to be different choices, right? And especially in business, those choices require risk. Okay? And that's the thing. It's like we can't run a business without understanding we are going to have to take some risks. And intuition is not something that I'm going to know the certainty of it afterwards. You follow it, and then you realize from taking that action, oh yes, this is like the best decision I've ever made. Right? Oh my God, I left that city, or I left that boyfriend, or I left that job, or I left I stopped eating this, I stopped hanging around these people, I stopped drinking this shit. Like, it's like there are certain things that you intuitively, you didn't exactly always know the outcome, like especially those like spontaneous, like you go traveling or you go meet somebody or eat. But when you listen to it, you're like, oh wow, I can trust my intuition. So as you move forward, and here's the thing, I think we treat our life and our business, and this is actually, it's what my mentor was saying. She's like, we treat our life or even our business as like this dancing monkey that if it doesn't perform in the way that we want it to perform, we just get frustrated and upset. And we all know when we are in that frustration and upsetness, that frequency is not a very strong frequency or vibration to manifest anything, right? You're all mad, you're upset at what happened, you stubbed your toe, everything is late, right? You know that. you know that that frequency doesn't really get you much other than the reflection of that, right? Uh, there was a woman that walked into my class the other day, and she's like, oh, I hate the fact that I'm feeling so judged, and everyone is frustrated with me, because she walked in late, and it's like, but where is that frustration coming from? Is it coming from within or from everyone else? You know? And it's like, so, if you're walking in frustrated, and then you see that mirror, that's simply just a mirror of what's going on in you, and it's like, okay, maybe two people are frustrated, but it's still a mirror. Because if you're not frustrated, you'd see the other frustrated person and have a little bit of compassion. It's like, oh, they're frustrated. But I'm glad I'm here in this yoga class. Do you see? So the new identity, right, is going to take decisions, and those decisions are not going to be something that it's not there's no certainty when you make decisions from your new identity. The only certainty is that you just know this is what you need to be doing. And I think as intuitives, as empaths, it is kind of the way we live. We can live from that logical place, from that irritated, frustrated place, from that blamey place. We all do it. But as somebody who's highly sensitive, you know that your highest functioning, the way you function at your greatest is when you are moving from that intuition. And there's something fulfilling about listening to that, right? That's the certainty. It's a certainty that I'm always going to choose based on what I know to be true. Because we know when we don't, we feel off, we feel out of alignment. We feel it because as a highly sensitive person, you are a feeler, right? You feel everything. So if somebody's like, oh yeah, you want to go to dinner, and you kind of didn't want to, you the whole time you're feeling like, oh, this is off, right? Even though your logical mind's could be fine, don't worry, you just eat it, and then you leave, right? But the whole time your intuition, your body, your mind, your energy is like, this is feeling off. And that's fine, okay? We're not always going to be like 100%, 1000% listening to our intuition, or like perfect students about it. But that's where I want you to get the certainty, right? The certainty is not the outcome. The certainty is knowing I am choosing based on my truth. And that's kind of the only way I can live. You know this, right? Because energetically, the more you kind of resist and push against something. So it's like, let's say something, you're just calling you, and you're just like, no, I'm gonna. Like, it takes more energy to ignore that thing than to actually just fucking go do the thing. Yeah? And that's the action, guys. Okay? So what would your new identity choose? And know that the choice is going to be like, what? Huh? Really? Take that risk? Spend that money? Do that? Invest in that? Like, whoa. Like, that's the new identity. Because it's something unknown, and it's something new. Right? The little girl who decides to go to ballet class and put on the tutu and all that stuff, it's like she just knew she wanted to do that. She wasn't necessarily, not all kids, but like most likely not necessarily overthinking who's in class and if they're going to like me. Sometimes kids will do that. But some who haven't been influenced so much by the external world will just do the thing, right? And take the risk. And so we kind of have to go back to that natural, playful innocence that we created from. Because it's actually it's a really powerful thing to go from our own innocence and create from there. Okay, it's like the innocence of our imagination is what creates this whole freaking world. And that's the thing that I think people don't realize about imagination. You know, it's like, imagine birds flying, like machines flying in the sky, like when that wasn't even a thing. Imagine light that can light up the whole grid of the country. That was not a thing. Imagine a car that goes faster than a horse. Like that was not a thing. Where did that happen? In our imagination. So we have to be willing to allow space, and I talk about this so much, the space for creativity. Okay, so if you were to work with me, we get grounded in the body, because that's where us as empaths, we know the answers, we can feel it. We need to clear the mind so that the intuitive downloads move through us, and we can start to listen and clear the noise and get out of the confusion and overload of information. Because that mental clarity is where our truth is. And if we listen to it over and over and over again, it's going to be like glaringly obvious what our truth is. And then the mastery of energy. It's like, okay, you have all of this energy. And what we tend to do is let's put it in healing, and then let's create this kind of like project that is sort of kind of what I think I should do. But then it didn't really work. So let's go back into healing and then go back into a project. And it's like this loop of like misusing your energy instead of knowing your timeline, seeing it, sticking to the vision. And it doesn't mean that it never can change, and staying the course and taking action based on that vision that you continually tune into based on your environment, based on your structure, based on your container that you do to support yourself. And then moving forward, even when obstacles are going to come, because they are, you know. So I think as healers, sometimes because we feel so much, when the overwhelm comes, or we have to actually kind of grind it out and do the work and stay in creative tension and call the person that we don't want to call and invest the money that we don't want to invest and all this stuff, we're like, okay, this is overwhelming. Let me go back into healing. And then you get a little bit of creativity, and then you put it into a creative project, because it feels good to put that energy into a creative project. But you kind of forgot the steps, the first step, like what timeline am I on, and is it the right timeline? And is this project supporting who I'm becoming? And is this what my new version identity will really choose? Okay, I see it all the time, right? We are creatives, and then it's like when we're like right at the peak of the hill, where we just have to kind of go over, or like it could be the other way, and we're in the thick of things, we're in the weeds, we sort of fall back into our healing practice, and then kind of shift our creativity until the SHIT starts hitting the fan. And that's why I'm saying having a container, having a place where your coaches and mentors can reflect back to you constantly, right? And give you strategy of where you're going. So if you were to work with me, that's what we do. We constantly move through the physical, mental, energetic blockages, deal with that, and then take that energy and continue to, remember your high level like image of where you're going, and continue to move forth on that. That's how you manifest, right? It's not this magical thing that just happens in an explosion one day. It's these tiny actions, it's these tiny intentions, it's tiny visions, it's these tiny vibrations, it's these tiny building your whole life around it, like we've always done since we were small, right? And then surrounding yourself with people who are going to keep you accountable to that thing. And I'm coming back to this, but the little girl who wants to be a ballerina can't just dance forever in her room. She needs a teacher, right? To teach her. So let's recap, okay? And hopefully this is making sense to you all. Okay, let me know if there's any big takeaways here. The questions is what timeline are you on? And is that timeline the timeline that you envision, that you see for yourself, truly? Okay, don't just intellectually answer that question. You have to sit with this. You have to sit in meditation. You have to get clear. You have to see the intuitive downloads that keep coming to you. Okay, so it's not just this like, yeah, I'm fine. Okay, because that is your survival. And if you know it's your survival, you can ask yourself, well, if I was to do exactly what I'm doing, exactly the way I'm doing it, 10 years from now, would I be happy? If the answer is yes, cool, stay on the timeline. If it's no, then do some tweaks. And ask yourself, who am I becoming, right? Who am I becoming in this new version, this new identity of myself? And where am I going? Where am I going? Am I going to stay here in this city, or am I going to move to down south and become a surfer, right? Again, I use that as an example because my mentor is one of the people I see who really lives based on her own truth. And she's very, 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 very intentional about every single thing she does, and in this respect of who she's around, or what she surrounds herself, how she makes choices. Okay, how active are you about stating in this present, about taking action in this present moment based on the timeline that you're going on, right? That you're moving towards. And the truth of the matter is, it's like there's a woman that is sort of like known as a manifestation queen. Every single hour when she was broke, every single hour she would remind herself, she'd put a reminder on her phone to feel into what it is to be a millionaire. Every hour, right? And she did so many things, courses and work and inner work and all that stuff. But what you'll notice about anybody who's successful, again, success in your own terms, I'm just using $1 million as an example, you will see they're very intentional about their time, right? What they do with their time, who they spend their time with, how they surround themselves with, right? Their time is precious and valuable, and they intentionally utilize that time to stay on the timeline that they choose. Okay, because otherwise, you're just going to be on survival, and 10 years from now, it's going to be the same exact story, and that same feeling of not feeling fulfilled. That's the truth, right? It's like if you're not following a timeline that you know in your heart to be true, you're not going to feel fulfilled. We all know that to be true. And if you're okay with that, that's fine, But if you're not, then, time to, just start to shift things slowly by slowly. Okay? So I think I said it all. I hope this was helpful. Again, I'm not this manifestation queen, expert, but I think we all can be masterful at this, and we have to all understand that we, at one point in our life, we're very masterful at this, especially when we were younger. I want to build a tent, and you build a tent. I want to go play with my friends, and you go find a friend. Yeah, I want to have ice cream, and all of a sudden you're having ice cream, like, right? It's always been our nature to manifest and create our life. Okay, so don't think of this as this like, oh my God, hard thing to do. It's just, now we have to get a little bit more intentional now that we have, our life and our survival needs that we are responsible for, right? But we are also responsible for creating our life. Like, we are the only ones responsible. It's not about anybody else or anything else or the external world. Okay, so if you want to create your life, your dream life, your dream business, then let me know, because this is what we do with our clients. We start to see where they're at, and one of the very first things we do, and I talk about this a lot, is we do a 3-level clearing where we start to, where are you stuck in the physical body, mind, and energy? What's imprinted that's kind of unconsciously holding you back? Because you may be taking the actions, but if you're at your core, have a part in you that does not feel safe moving forward, it will constantly sabotage that timeline because it doesn't feel safe moving into that unknown. So that's the very first thing we do, right? It's deep work. And I know all of you are able to do this because you're coaches and healers, right? And it looks into that. And that's going to be the domino effect so that we know that that's not the one driving the bus anymore, right? And again, it's this constant, like in a high touch, high ticket program like ours, it is working with you on such a deep individual level and strategizing based on what you want. It's different from a group because a group is more general and we all learn the same things, which is fine, right? But when you are moving towards where you want to go and you're making decisions that are risky, there is going to be resistance. All of your SHIT is going to hit the fan and everything is going to come up. And that's where it's so important, instead of spiraling down into overwhelm and then just dropping your vision, what we do is we work together in those moments, free up the energy, and then take that little bit of transmuted energy and just move it to the next obvious action in your business and your life, spiritually and strategically. So in your business, it would be what would be the most profitable action. Okay, because yes, you can write a book, but like that's not necessarily the most profitable action in your business, right? And again, if you're not in your business for profit, that's a different story. But for most people, if it's going to be sustainable, if it's going to nourish you, if it's going to be fulfilling, if it's going to fulfill the dream, because it's a tool. Money is a tool, everyone. Okay, it's not this evil, greedy thing. It's a tool. And if you want to build a team to support you, if you want to build a life and support systems to support your clients, the tool of money can be very useful, right? For your own health, right? And the health of your company, the health of your teammates, and the health of your clients. So we start to shift our relationship around money, around sales, around marketing, and really align it with, who we're becoming in our own deep truth. And I'm always, always, always going to reflect back to you what you have already told me. Because in our program, we're always moving from survival, like all the things we're afraid of, and then all of a sudden we kind of find ourselves in this flow where the truth is coming out. And I just continue to mirror that back, because sometimes that truth will come out and then we forget about it. So a skilled coach will always mirror back to your truth, right? And help you take actions based on that truth, and take actions based outside of your comfort zone. I have my coaches because I know the timeline that I'm on is not the timeline that is now. So I need other people who have done what I want to do before me to help me spiritually, mentally, energetically, emotionally, strategically in their business, right? So if you are interested in that, let me know, Jamie, I'm ready for a breakthrough yoga coaching call, and DM me and I will send you the Calendly link. And there's also a link in the comments when Katie gets around to putting it. I think she usually puts it a couple of days from now. Okay, that sometimes my Calendly link is in the comments. If you scroll down, it's also in all the other trainings all the other free trainings that I do. So that is it. I hope this manifestation gets you, let's say, spinning, out of your confusion, and into an action and a direction that is moving towards your soul, moving towards your heart, moving towards what you truly want. Because everything is possible. I truly believe that. Everything is possible. I believe in you, and I just want you to continue to live your own dream, because what else are we here to do, right? What else are we here to do? And why not? Why not? Right? Why not you? Why not? Why not? Right? We have the privilege. We have the health, right? We have the resources. So why not create the life we want? Because in turn, it's going to shift your entire world and this world as a whole. So thank you so much, everybody. My name is Jamie Hernandez. I will see you next week, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I will be also shifting the name of this group. So just stay tuned for that. All right. So DM me if you want a breakthrough yoga coaching call, and I'll see you all next week. Bye, everyone. Thanks.